The tourism product is excellent, but Belize needs to raise the level of performance of staff. Throughout my lifetime, and I'm 63, has Belize ever experienced a pleasant environment? If unanimity is the yardstick, then Belize has never experienced a pleasant environment. If we use unity, on the other hand, as the measuring stick, unity referring to the majority controlling government, then yes, we've consistently had a pleasant environment, which is also the likely answer one would get if he or she were polling the mainstream, because pleasantness within the Belizean context has to do with experiencing peace and joy in the absence of war, civil or otherwise, having a stable currency and economy, the powers that be exercising sufficient control over crime and violence, where Belizeans still feel safe walking the streets and going to the supermarkets, as well as enjoying the nightlife, unlike other countries, including here in the neighboring Central America, where the citizenry are constantly terrorized in civil war of the past, gang warfare, you know, periodic bomb threats, that which I just described. I mean, I would refer to as the minimum standard, minimum acceptable standard, which would be adequate for citizenry, Belizeans, given we have our bias in comparing Belize with other countries. Now, if we go by the universal standard, however, in looking at a pleasant environment for the tourism experience and product, considering that tourism accounts for approximately 35 to 40% of Belize's GDP, which amounts to between 600 and 800 million dollars annually, thereby making tourism one of Belize's largest economic sectors, one of three, then we would have to say that Belize falls woefully short of sustaining a pleasant environment for the tourists and the tourism product. And there's a reason for that. Belizeans, like everyone else, everywhere else, want to experience pleasantness within themselves and also pleasantness in the environment, having a pleasant experience. A pleasant environment is what people refer to as a success. Now, when you consider that tourists don't come to Belize to attend church, but instead to go to the casinos, enjoy the marine life on and offshore, you know, visit the ruins and experience the different cultures such as the Mayan, Garifuna, Creole cultures, even the Latino, with their varying cuisine, music and dance, a taste of the nightlife. In the pleasant environment, you have some taking refreshments, smoking joints, getting half naked, making merry, dancing up a storm, and getting a little bit out of character at times. You know, which is the ideal experience most tourists find attractive, where they unwind and, you know, let it loose, let it out, hang out. And what keeps tourists coming back? That is, if the experience has a happy ending. So that is Belize Tourism Product, dubbed Mother's Nature Secret, greatest secret, best secret by Belize Tourism Board, BTB, referring to the rich experience I just described. So in order to reach and sustain the universal standard of a pleasant tourism experience, the BTB has work to do in order to get tour guides as well as other workers in the field, in the industry, here in Belize, up to standard, up to speed. Because too many stop working when the tourists get married. They too want to get in the act. When they see naked people, they stop and stare. Therefore, the tour guide training has to address the discipline of work. That ought to be a requirement. Having the discipline and resilience. Being able to sustain it as long as you're on the job. Yeah? Not your time off. When you're on the job, you don't lose character. You don't stop working. To stare. To get into the act. You must learn how to help create the darn awesome, pleasant experience for tourists, the one they love, without losing control of yourself and cheating the job. Now that will be all. Much obliged. Have a good one.